Welcome to the Scale with Stride podcast, the place where you come to listen to some of the world's most influential leaders of the SaaS industry.
Welcome to another episode of the Scale with Stride podcast. I'm your host, John Hitchen, and today we've got an exceptional guest with us, Mark Stephenson. Mark brings over 30 years of experience in solution sales and go-to-market leadership, having worked with high-growth, venture-backed SaaS companies like Evisort and AVI Networks, as well as large organizations such as HP and Cisco. Mark's career started in sales at Xerox, and he's since built a reputation for consistently delivering outstanding results, surpassing quota in 24 out of 27 years. He's developed a proven four-pronged growth approach that helps businesses scale and succeed with a focus on building cohesive, high-performing teams. Known for his creativity and high-energy leadership, Mark has both experienced direct and indirect sales, as well as marketing and customer success organizations. He's passionate about aligning go-to-market strategies with business objectives, hiring top-tier talent, and building scalable customer engagement processes. Mark, it's great to have you on board today. How are you?
Oh, geez, John, I'm blushing. What an intro. Thanks. Great to join you from San Francisco here today.
Great to have you on board. So, look, I'd give you a go at an introduction there, but do you want to give us a little whistle-stop tour about you for the viewers?
You did a great job, but I just say it's a third, very large corporations, as you said, Cisco, back in the day when they were acquiring a company once a quarter at least. And so from that, calling on high-tech accounts in the backyard of Cisco, like Apple, when it had the original orange carpet pre-iPhone and all the way to Xilinx and Google and the hyperscalers in between. It was a great time and a great time for me to understand how to bring technologies to enterprises. But I always felt like the next third of my career was really early stage because candidly, when you're working at a large company like Cisco with 65% gross margin and about that in market share, you pretty much ought to win every time. And I felt like I was presiding over somebody else's best practices. And so the second third of my career is really early stage, like you said, AI for contracts with Evisort and different tech domains. But it's what black marks you put on white paper in an early stage firm that makes it run, which was super great. And then the last third, I've been about 24 months working with technical founders with about a handful of VCs who will bring me in, CEOs who are having thoughts about their go-to-market, and really help them with my playbook that I developed as an operator to really help them think about how to optimize their go-to-market and don't create sales debt that you don't need.
Nice. I like it. Well, today's going to be really interesting then. So we're going to focus on those four pillars that you work with technical founders and CEOs on when doing some fractional advisory board business work with them. So first pillar, ideal customer profile. I guess from your stance, where do you start when talking to founders about this subject?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, ICP, what a shocker. Everybody gets that as a super important concept, but I think few really operationalize it deeply. And at its basic level in an early stage business, so my frame of reference is early stage firm, the bias is to fail. And you have to do extraordinary things every day and be very efficient to break that bias and get your flywheel going and escape velocity. And so everybody being on a true north focus about what customers you want to go after is super critical for the whole company. And at its basic point, an ICP should have three things. Number one, the customer that you're you're trying to serve has the most pain or need for what your solution provides, the use case. Super critical. Number two is in the initial sale, you don't sell 100% of your total addressable market, i.e. there's expansion sales beyond the first sale, and SaaS is so great about that, right? And then third, you can get predictability about the business by serving that customer base, gross margin, but also the timing of deals, the average order size. You need to be able to model a business out of a customer segment you're going to go after. So those three things are the basics that we think about when we figure out that ICP.
Mm. And when you work with technical founders or come in, I guess, how do you work with them? They'll probably come to you with some form of ICP. And I can imagine you're going to challenge them in some way and say, why is that the ICP? And making them realize what it might be. So what does that discovery stage look like for you?
Yeah, it's super fun. I have kind of a workout process that I work with the CEO. It's, what's the vision, the true north that you're going to go after? What's the mission, which is what's our operating plan? What have you signed up with the board that you got to go deliver, and new logos, expansion sales, ARR growth, et cetera? And then what's your strategy? That's less than 5 things you're going to go do to capture the market and suck the marrow out of the opportunity. And then what's your structure? A lot of people
Mm.
muddle that around. That's the order of operations is super critical. And then with that structure that you're going to go after, hey, is it a SLG motion, PLG motion, or both? What's the talent you need, key processes, leading lagging metrics? Anyway, I have this workout framework that I do with them. And really the idea is to challenge what's the opportunity in the business. Like, for example, you could have founders that say, I want to go after enterprise. Okay, strap on your seatbelt, because those are long sales cycles. I like to take out a triangle and start segmenting the demographics of the opportunity. Is it global enterprise or high end mid-market or commercial or SMB that you want to go after? Let's chart, if you've got N equal 40, you got 40 customers, you can start charting, okay, what was the average order size? What was the sales cycle time? I love going after global enterprises. They're big deals, but the other side of that coin is mid-market, where the average order sizes could be, real good, but shorter sales cycles. So doing that segmentation is really key. 3 ways you want to cut the ICP, though, is the demographics, like I said. Also, I think, especially with open source projects, the attraction could be, well, I got customers all over the world. Okay, great. But, you could probably drive by 5 customers on the way to the airport to get on a 10-hour flight. I love to stay focused. So pick a geography. If you're in North America, good God, resist the urge to have a global TAM, because it just drives, global go to market, because it drives complexity needlessly. So the demographics, next, the technographics. Hey, when a customer buys your solution, what else do they buy?
Mm.
You can use those technographics as a marker for your ideal customer profile. And then third are the psychographics, why do they buy, who buys, the persona within that. And you put all 3 of those together and you try to score that. And you try to then, Clay is a great solution right now to where you could really see your ICP in the data and start triangulating a really tight ICP to go after.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
those are some pragmatic elements in the ICP.
I love the exercise of it and the fact that you're not coming in working with founders. Right, let's make your ICP work. You've got a challenge and you're testing them to see why it works. And then, you kind of mentioned there, I think the geography really stuck out to me. In our field, we have an ICP in recruitment, but 90% of my clients are in the ICP, and there's 10% as a salesperson you just can't say no to, right?
Yeah.
Business is business, but it's good to be super structured, because I imagine that falls into the messaging and maybe even the mission statement and everything else which comes around it. So really important for individuals to think about the ICP.
Well, I'd say even further, it's a super cheat, because if you can get the whole company around a true north of what customer you're serving, I guess we're talking about go to market. Okay, great. But think about product.
Mm.
If I'm really talking to my ICP all the time, then the RFEs, requests for feature enhancements, are market. And it really becomes efficient about how you market product, sales, and customer success, right? Customer success really gets advantaged by having customers that they onboard who really need what you have. Back to that
Mm.
first point of ICP. Go vector on who has the deepest use case for what you're selling.
Completely agree. And I could dive into this all day. The ICP is so layered as well, and it maps out. But I guess thinking about your second pillar, because this will reflect the type of people you recruit to manage the ICP sales. So talent, super important for you, right? This is the second part of your pillar. So what's the importance of a talent acquisition in scaling a business at the earliest stage?
Yeah, this is where, I started in my advisory with Series C companies, even some E's. And I was like, gosh, I got here too late in a lot of cases to avoid sales debt. And I'm
Mm.
clearing sales debt when I get in. I do a talent assessment. Okay, half these people shouldn't be here.
And just for everybody, just to help us understand what you mean by sales debt.
Just inefficiencies, just like you have tech debt, right? I think it applies in sales debt, and I have kind of an operational factory mindset around things. I want efficiencies. I want to find the bottlenecks in your go to market, and I want to have the most efficient go to market. And when reps aren't making quota, when you're burning headcount, those are all, that's sales debt. And
Mm.
it's your biggest expense is the talent that you have in the organization, and putting them productively to work in your factory is super critical, right? So having that operational mindset is very important. It's the big thing I see is technical founders typically go with what they know, and they will really evaluate go-to-market talent, marketing, sales, customer success, SDRs, on how well they know the tech domain, because they don't know how to evaluate the functional domain.
Mm.
Functional being marketing expertise or sales expertise or customer success expertise. And I think you need a modicum of the tech domain, but over multiple engagements, now 14 different engagements across many domains, I can tell you with absolute fact, in go-to-market, functional expertise trumps tech domain. And what I do is make sure they have a minimum of tech domain, and I can tell you how we do that. But it's the functional experience. There's sales experience if we're talking about AEs or sales leaders. Do they know the journey that you're in right now?
Yeah.
That is the biggest mistake I see. And I usually get involved when the CEO becomes consciously incompetent. They've made the mistake and they realize, okay, I don't know what I don't know. I need to get expertise here. Those are the good ones. Those are the CEOs who are really savvy and looking for continuous improvement versus still filled with some hubris.
Yeah, I
So,
get you.
yeah.
I'm working with a founder at the moment of an early stage cyber vendor, and he has no previous experience in cyber, but his approach and energy to things is so business focused that he's focusing on the business elements and not just, let me bring in a load of cyber people. Obviously, technical language comes into things, but he's taking the same approach there and mindset as well. So let's just dig into that a little bit. We call these functional expertise, but they're also like the characteristics of a person, right?
Yeah.
So what are things you look for in bringing in go-to-market folk?
Yeah. Well, let's focus on the sales rep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So three things. Seems to be always three, right? But let's put a Venn diagram up on the board here. So you have functional experience, which would be sales. You have tech domain, and then you have customer experience. Those three. Best candidate is in all those three. Let's break down functional experience. So if you're a sub 5 million ARR company, you want to hire a sales rep who's been in a sub $5 million company. They were the first, second, or third to open a region, as an example. You want to look at their resume and see not a lot of words, but a lot of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shocked at how few sales reps have, this was my quota. Here's what I attained. Here's were the key deals that I did in that time period to do it. And if you're a technical CEO and you're listening to this, run it by the numbers. If they don't have that clearly in their resume, it's a yellow flag. But check and ask them. I want to go through the last 4 years. Tell me each year and what you attained. That type of prior performance is a super good indicator of future performance. Is it a similar average order size? Is it a similar sales cycle time frame? These are really good metrics that you can figure out. And a big one for an early stage firm is, how did you get pipeline? Ask them, I want an equation with 4 numbers. Number 1, how much of your pipeline was marketing sourced? Second, how much of your pipeline was SDR sourced or BDR sourced? Third, how much of your pipeline was AE sourced and how much was channel sourced? If you got somebody in your early stage under 10 million in ARR, they better not answer channel or marketing. They better answer, I build my own pipeline. And anything that I get from a BD, and I work well with a BDR, it's the pod that matters. That's the answer you want. So that sales experience, have you hit quota? How do you build pipeline? Run it by the numbers, and you got a really good indication this is somebody I want to talk to. The tech domain, what I typically do is have a CTO or an SE group, somebody develop a technical interview question. So that second interview after the first interview where you're sussing out their functional experience would be a technical interview. And it's 2-part. One is you share the technical value prop of the company, get them excited about that. And the second part of that interview is to ask them some strategic questions and score them on their tech domain experience. So you can relate one candidate versus the next. And then third is customer experience, back to where they've been selling, what customers have they sold to. Rolodexes, everybody should look that word up, don't necessarily translate from one company to the next. But if you sold to Citibank and Citibank is one of the accounts you want to go after, by the way, that's a nightmare to go call on. But then that's a good indication that they'll be off and running pretty quickly to your ICP.
I love it. Functional over technical. But you kind of touched in there around sales, marketing, and customer success, which brings me on to your third pillar, collaboration. Right, super important in the modern day SaaS org. So talk to us all about the role of collaboration, fostering innovation and growth within SaaS.
Yeah, sure. Hey, just one more point on talent, because I can't get past it. It's just so important. And it just so happens that's your business, right? But the hacks on this, and I got a lot of gray hair, made a lot of mistakes. These are the hacks for hiring talent. Number 1 is the tight spec. Give the recruiter or your own internal recruiter or yourself an objective mark to hit. And we've talked about the Venn diagram, but really get granular about what this person looks like before you meet them. Number 1, the spec. Number 2 is have a really tight 2-week interview process, no more than 5 people. I don't want to have all the reps freaking interview the person. You're not rushing a fraternity, for crying out loud. And third, have a challenge in that interview. A 30, 60, 90, give them a prompt of your facts about your business. So it's not an academic exercise, but I want to see a rep's 30, 60, 90-day plan or a sales leader's 30, 60, 90-day plan. Can they put black marks on white paper that's relevant? Do you have confidence that they'd make best use of the first 90 days?
Yeah.
And then the last hack is to avoid false positives, meaning I hired somebody, they got past my defenses that I really shouldn't have. Is I have a 5-week onboarding program where there's some stand and deliver elements. And I fired people that couldn't deliver the first call deck, as an example. And that means they can't become conversationally fluent about the value prop in the first 5 weeks. It ain't gonna be good. So it's a way to make sure if you make mistakes, it's an imperfect science, you catch them quick. Those are big hacks, and I could go a lot deeper on that. It's I have actually written kind of some missives on this point because it's so critical to get the right people on the bus in your company. Anyway, so
yeah, definitely. I mean, from a recruitment point of view, the thing that stands out to me is 2 weeks for a process. Time is your best friend as a hiring manager. It's your advantage because some of these organizations, and I bet the bigger ones are even worse, could be weeks and in some cases months. So having a 2-week process gives you real competitive advantage in the market. But as I say, I can talk about these individual subjects all day, but I want to make sure our viewers understand your pillars and we have some bones. So collaboration.
Yeah. Collaboration, and it's another thing that sounds trite. Oh yeah, sure. I want everybody working together. But it starts at the top. Do you have, and I never got this early days of my career. I worked for great companies and I took culture for granted until I worked. You take culture for granted until you work for a company that's got a shit culture. And then you don't ever again. But is there an emotional pull to the vision of the company? Do you break it down into a mission with BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals that are credible? And then this is the super critical piece. Can you then cascade those OKRs into a way that belies interdependency? That's how you get collaboration going. So for marketing, by the way, I wouldn't hire a marketing person that they want their number one objective being MQLs. I want to hire a marketing person that their number one objective is pipeline that closes. So you see the difference there? So a BDR, I wouldn't give them a comp plan that's just on meetings. No, it's meetings and pipeline. Well, wait a minute. I'm not qualifying that meeting as pipeline. The rep is. Yeah. Isn't that great? You have an interdependency with the rep. The rep, I want them to have an interdependency for really knowing what the use case is and handing that off to customer success so that customer can be wildly successful in the onboarding. So the CEO and the executive team needs to cascade cross-functional metrics all the way through their organization that stitches the leading and lagging metrics of the company together. That's how you get this flywheel going and everybody's going in the same direction.
I love it. And I think the obvious thing here that, maybe founders or VCs who are involved in the company want to know is how do you come into a business and overcome the challenges? Because what you said there is a brilliant start to a business. Like if I was a founder and I was at zero revenue and I was building, I'd build with the vision of head. But what about the founders who are at, a few million ARR, they've built out the org and maybe there isn't the North Star and, it's not dripped down. What's the challenges and tactics there?
Well, it's just classic gap analysis. I mean, I never get into a situation that's all perfect or I wouldn't be there. Right. So all these things are in various degrees of completeness. And there's a good Japanese word called Kaizen or continuous improvement. Everything needs to be completely tweaked all the time with the market forces you have and everything else. But if you've got that mindset ahead of time, you can really drill in all those things and cement the interdepartmental teamwork in your OKRs, in your compensation plans. Everything is developed around that. I'll give you another hack. This one I didn't come up with, but I stole it like crazy. It's called Value One, and Looker did this. And what Value One is, what's the first value that a customer would get that would make them want to underwrite buying your solution? So is it, the classic 3 would be, hey, by buying your solution, I can get access to $1 of revenue or take $1 of cost out or mitigate risk or all 3. So that's the M in MedPick, by the way. And it's the I. What's the metric of improvement? What's the implications of that pain? What's the P, the pain? All those work together in MedPick. But it all comes together with Value One. It's like, what's the first value that a customer will get? That's that land or initial use case that you want to be really good at. So sales reps need to do discovery to figure out Value One. They need to sell to Value One. They need to do POCs or POVs to Value One. And they need to tell customer success what Value One is. So it's a great customer baton that you can hand off through the organizations. And customer success, here's a big hack, is everybody will say, I'm done in customer success when the customer is onboarded. And yet, why do you have cancels?
Mm.
Technically, onboarding is table stakes. You want to make sure that the customer had value one before you try to get value in and try to sell more to the customer. And once you understand those business impacts, then you feed that to marketing, and marketing should be marketing to value one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Love that.
And
And
it
there's the
feeds back to your
collaboration.
ICP, right? Because what was the thing I said about ICP? Number one thing is to find customers that need you the most. And
Most
if you
pain.
quantify that business value through value one, you can expert your ICP as well. It's a systems way of thinking about it.
I love it, Mark. I love it. I think very, very logical, and I think very almost very needed, but not overcomplicating it. Value one, the initial value we can offer without going into everything else, I think is really important to keep at the forefront. So I guess with value one, that neatly puts me into your last pillar around sales process. So sales process is a huge topic. I can imagine you do a lot of work here with founders. So designing an effective sales process tailored to the ICP who has the pain, where do you start?
Yeah, a little bit of commentary. I think in the last 10 years, it's been this kind of acid crazed, everybody would buy anything kind of time frame. Those days are kind of over. And I would argue that was a unique time. If you look at reps, I don't think they really had to follow a sales process in the last 10 years. Everybody's over their number. I mean, even a turkey can fly in a tornado. So now all of a sudden sales process is more important. It's because people aren't just buying willy-nilly, right? I think it's useful to build a sales process where you think there's a caustic, green visored finance person on the other side of your sales order agreement, looking at this and saying, why the hell would I buy this?
Mm,
So that's something I do in my engagement. I hate doing advisory as a fractional CRO. I like being there 1 or 2 days a week to
mm,
really ground these changes into action. And so what we'll do is we'll interview the best reps, we'll interview the CEO, the founders, and we'll understand what's that sales cycle. Every sales cycle known to man has interest, development, and commitment. With a couple of, you've qualified, discovery, break down those milestones, get what are the best practices in each stage. What's the customer verifiable outcomes that you know where you are in those stages?
mm,
And then what's the SLA about how long a prospect should be in those stages? And you can instrument through HubSpot or Salesforce then a real great way to get telemetry on your forecast, where you are in the business, and do it in a way that's got good ergometrics for the rep. So it's not burdensome. You're not asking all these freaking Dilbert questions. You're asking the right questions at the right time. BANT for meeting qualification. You're not going to do
mhm.
med pick in a meeting.
Yeah.
Do they have the need? Am I talking to somebody who's probably accountable? Program in BANT for qualification between the BDR and the AE for something being on pipe. Then program MedPick into it with your best practices, constantly refine that, that value one piece all the way through. So that gets done and instrumented it into Salesforce. Such a wonderful renaissance right now in RevOps tools you can use and AI tools and everything
Mm,
else. So instrument that process, kind of staple yourself to a suspect or a prospect. What's that flow with marketing? What's the lead flow then to the sales process? And what's the work process from sales to customer success? So engineer that workflow, have the right technology in play. It's all stuff we do. I tell you the other good hack though, I think this is a good visual, is try to instrument a 4-call close. Oh, Mark, what are you selling? Typewriters? Yeah, 1988, I was selling typewriters. But if you don't have a simple sales cycle, if you don't engineer it to be simple, it sure won't be. So your first call should be, you should have a first call deck. Who am I? What problems am I solve? It really answers the 3 whys. Why do anything? Why do it with your company? And why do it now? So that first call deck, that's one of the things I look at before I even start with a company. I have a reading list that I ask for. Let me have your first call deck. That tells you a lot. Second call deck is 2 slides. What's the customer's current state and the problems they have with that current state? Hey, and if they were going to fix it, what's the desired state? That's the second call deck. So you're using those in concert. You're taking notes about the problems they're having today versus what you want to achieve. The third call deck is how you construct a POC or a POV. What are the critical versus nice to have requirements? What's the governance about it? And that I will have an executive presentation at the end of this POC with the economic buyer to do a readout of how the solution met those requirements. And then the fourth call deck is the proposal. And if you put all 4 of those call decks together and you had to sue in a higher court for dollars for your solution, it would represent you well. And so we engineer a sales cycle with those 4 kind of call decks in mind, customer facing artifacts that you can use, an anchor for the decision all the way through. So sales cycle, super critical. That can be tailored. Doesn't matter the freaking tech domain. All that can still apply. And you really give reps and the company what they need to drive great customer outcomes and great customer conversations.
Mark, I think speaking to you there, I mean, you went into hyper growth with just the excitement and passion behind you. It was radiating experience and, having the simplicity of it, but also the confidence before getting technical and what everyone tries to jump into straight away was great. I could chat to you about this all day and go into metrics and defining the process out to it. But it's been great to speak with you today. If I had to sort of summarize a few key points for our listeners today, I think ICP doesn't just mean a Fortune 1000 company or Fortune 500 revenue. Who's got the pain? Okay, that's a great starting point and a great piece of criteria. I think secondly, on talent, functional expertise over technical expertise is overlooked so much. And I think really you nailed it there in terms of what are we looking for, not just someone out of the ecosystem. And then I really liked your work on the sales process where you were talking around engineering it to be simple. Here's 4 steps. Here's the customer journey in our eyes, getting them from A to Z, getting that deal closed. So look, a real pleasure speaking with you today. I guess if people want to follow up with you or get hold of you and talk shop some more, what's the best way to do it?
So LinkedIn or my cell phone is 408-406-9174. And my wife says I need to keep busy. I work with a client 1 or 2 days a week. Currently working with 4, which is fantastic. And ride motorcycles and cars on Friday to keep my sanity. But it's been my pleasure to be on this with you, John. And much to my chagrin, your accent belies how smart you are, and it turns out you really are. It's been great to work with you here.
My pleasure. All right, Mark, take care.
Giddy up.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want more information about the podcast, head over to our website, Scale with Strive.